you're fine with that one. Okay.
That's great, Doctor. Will you be able to let him upload to the LMS as well?
That actually it's not under my purview, meaning like it happens through the administration. So you have to request from there actually.
Sure, we'll do that. Thank you very much, sir.
Or else like you can share within your whatever the platforms you are having, Google Drive maybe.
Exactly, that's what I thought. If they don't allow, we will have a separate.
Share among yourself. Yeah, no problem. Right,
Thank
I
you very
have
much,
no
sir.
issue with that one. Okay, right. So okay, let me share my screen. Hope you can see my screen. Can one of you confirm?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Yeah. So please log into kahoot.it and use your registration number as the nickname so that we can use this for continuous assessment. Right now, I think we are working on halfway through. So hopefully I will have some exercises, independent exercises, you to work on, material covered so far. I think now we have done enough for the basic programming construct. So I will have first assignment for starting from next week. So I will post within this week. Right. I think we are ready to start. Others, anyone else need more time? You can raise your hand if you are still, having issues logging in. Right. Seems it's fine. So let's start. Okay, this is quiz number 4. Quiz number 3, right? This is the 4th session. Yeah. Anyways. Yes, last time we briefly discussed what object orientation is. When you take a particular person, we can thought of as the class. And then in a class, we discussed there could be 2 things, the variables and the methods. And so age could be considered as the instant variable in this particular case. So the method could be the actions performed by a person, for example, like walking, talking, and so on. Right. Today I will also discuss more on this.
Excuse me, sir. So I just joined. How can I find the URL?
I will type in the chat.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And the PIN number is given there. And the last line, if you can find this information. Can you confirm whether you can log into the Kahoot? Right. First of all, we discussed dictionaries last time. And under the dictionaries, we discussed 4 things. First of all, we discussed lists, tuples, sets, and the dictionaries. And in dictionaries, we can use key value pairs. Now in tuples and the lists, we use index. Like, for example, the first item, we'll say, for example, if the list is L1, we can say L1 within, square bracket 0. So in here, we can use this key value pair. So this is the key, and we can use this key to access the values, right? So in this particular case, what happens when you see this one, and we are accessing number dictionary 1, that will give you the value of the first one, right? So that is 1. We are giving this as the outcome. Right. The person who joined just now, were you able to join the system?
Yes, sir. So just join. So it's loading.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Okay. Then let's move to the next one. Okay, I think still some of you have difficulty when you're given a loop. So let me give you one way to handle a problem like this. Now, for example, in this particular case, we are supposed to find the total of this code. And to find that, we know there's a loop. And remember, in while loop or any loop, in while loop, there are 3 things you should look at, right? First one, the starting value. So the initialization, we call it. So in this particular case, count is actually used there. And then increment or decrement, that is this line where the count is actually increased by 2 every time within the loop. And the loop continues with this, the condition, right? So these are the 3 places you have to first focus on when you work with the loop. Right now, since we have like 2 variables to work on, usually we can put up a table, right? So those who have difficulties, you can think about this table. Right now, for example, here I can have, the count, and then let me use text box here. We can say, okay, total, and then we have here the count, right? And this line is for the number of times the loop repeat, right? This is just for information. If you want to analyze something like in a common questions in the loops, we can put up like this to understand for the beginners. Now, the initially, that means we are still in the, before you enter in the loop, the values for total is 0, and value for the count will be also 0, right? And now you are checking this condition. You are here now. We check whether the condition is the count is less than or equal to 3. That is correct, right? This is true, meaning like you go inside. So that means you are inside the loop the first time you are going to repeat the loop, and then you increase the count first. So that means the count will be 0 plus 2, count will be 2. And then you say total plus count. Total is 0, count is 2. So total becomes 2 at the end of the first loop. Right. Everyone in the chat, can you send me the values for the second loop? Once you repeat the second loop, can you send me the values? What is the value for total? What is the value for count? In the chat, everybody in the class, I want you to just to see like how many of you are comfortable with working with the loops. Right. Now at the end of the loop, we have total is 2, count is 2, right? You go again from the top, you check the condition. Now the count is 2. Is it less than or equal to 3? Yes. So that means it will repeat for the second time. And then now you add count to 2. So that means this will be 2 plus 2, that is 4. Count will be, 4. Yes, 2 plus 2, that will be 4. And then total plus count. Total is 2, count is say 4, should be 6, right? So the answer, the correct answer, let's see how many of you have got it before me. Okay, couple of them. Okay, good. If you, now you should be able to, right? So now the count is 4. You go back and you check the condition. And now you can see count is not less than or equal to 3. That means you come out from the loop, the answer will be 6, right? So that is what we expect here. The answer should be 6. I hope the next time I have given these similar questions, you should be able to work on those who had the difficulty, because more than half of the class, you made the mistake here. So I want you to make sure that you are not going to do that mistake again, right? Let's see. Okay, right. So we have 2118 on the top. I think that was an easy one. Basically, you pass here, there's a function called multiply by 2, you are getting a number, and what happens within that, you increase the number by 2. And here we call the function multiply by 2 by 5. So the number will be 5 into 10. The answer comes here. The answer should be 10 in this particular case. Right, I think we also discussed this one. Usually, when you're given a string here, dialog, and when you say string slices, what looks we have a start, stop, and step. When you have -1, you go from the backward. So the answer is this. That is also easy one. We start with number 0. Within that, we add 2, and then you start printing number. So number should start with 2. We have a list data structure, and we know that in Python, the index start with 0. So when we say N1, it refers to the second item, that is 2. Yeah, that was easy. When we discuss the type of this, when you have a decimal point, it will take its float value in Python. Although it's int value looks like int, but since you have the decimal point, once you have a decimal point in Python, it will considered as a floating point number. Yeah, looks like you still have some difficulties in range function. Remember, in range function works like this. If you have basically a range function, if you, there are 3 values, right? So usually you have to have start value, stop value, and step value, right? Now, usually if you have only one, right? If you say range, let's say, 11 in this particular case, right? So that means the starting value is initialized to 0. So if you have only one value, that means it will specify stop value, right? So that means range stop, right? This is what it refers. So meaning that the start value is 0 and step value. So this you should know. Step value is 1. Now, when you say stop, right, remember it goes up to this one, not including this one. So when you say 11, it starts with 0, goes up to 10, like including 10 one. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And this loop repeats 11 times, right? Remember, we discussed this idea earlier, right? So this is how it works, right? If you want to say 1, 11, then it means you specify range, start, and then stop, right? And what you need to know is step is 1, if it is not given, right? So in this one, it starts with 1, right? 1 to 10. And if you have 3 values like range 1, 11, let's say 2, right? That means you specify 3 values, right? So all the 3 values, starting value, end value, and also the steps. So you will go by 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. It goes like this, right? I hope that now it is clear. If you have any doubts, make note of this. So very important, because every time when we use loops, when you just see something like this, what you need to remember is this will repeat 11 times. I told you this. When you say range in, that loop repeats n times. So here it loop repeats 11 times. The values goes from 0 to 10. So that understanding you should have. Okay. Next. So there's a problem in this code. So I'm going to skip this. Sorry. So what happens there is it should be 100. There's an error in this code. So sorry about that. So I skipped this one. We'll move to the next one. Yes, here again, n is a list. And when you say N0, we are referring the first item, and it's assignment. You are assigning 10 to the first item. So the updated one should be N, first item is 10, the others are remaining as the same, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And in a tuple, you can change the, sorry, in a list, you can change this. In a tuple, you cannot, right? So this is a list. So in a list, you can modify. Right. Those have difficulty. Let me quickly go through. This is again a while loop. When you say condition true, it's never ending loop, meaning like it will repeat forever. But then again, we discuss break keyword. In break. Whenever Python interpreter reaches break, it will come out from the loop. So n start with 0, and then n is incremented by while, and this will repeat. So basically, it will repeat, dialogue. And how many times is the problem, right? So when you start with 1, it goes as 2 and 3, 4, 5, right? And then once you print 5 times, then n becomes n plus 1, n becomes 6, and 6 greater than 5, it will mean break. So this will exactly print dialogue 5 times. So that's the answer. Okay, there are 2 more questions to go. Okay, so the slicing string, actually this could also be used as a list, because a string is a list of characters the similar way, and we know that the indexes starts with 0, so this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is forward indexing, and this says the starting value, so we'll start with I, so which means this is incorrect, this is incorrect. So these are the 2, and goes up to 3, not including 3. So that means it goes 1 and 2, which means I, and this is the correct answer. Okay, last one. Let's see who the winner of today's quiz is. Right. So ours is very clear. Basically, when you say double colon, it refers to that we are going to have all the entire string in this particular case. So which is dialogue. So let's see who the winner for today's session. Right. Okay, here are the winners. Third place goes to 2132. And then we have just 2105, second place, first place 2118, and runner-ups 2124 and 2137. Okay, congratulations, the winners for today's quiz, and I hope that others also will take their best to come for the leaderboard. Yeah, mainly this shows you that you work hard to take this up. Right. Before we move on, the winner 2118, yeah, can you raise your hands, please? Right. And what is your first name, Karnadas?
It's Shamali, sir.
Ah, okay, Shamali. Right. Congratulations, Shamali. Where are you working?
I'm working as a lecturer, sir,
Attached to?
at a private university.
What, if you don't mind? What
East
is...
of Metro Campus.
Ah, okay. You are from...
East of Metro Campus. Sir.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So
Yes,
you are
sir.
already familiar with Python?
No, this is the first time, sir.
First time. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Nice to hear that. 2105, Chirat. Chirat, where are you working?
I'm working at 99X.
You are also familiar, right?
Yes, somewhat.
Somewhat, okay. So you are already familiar with the data analytics modules as well, like NumPy, Pandas, the related packages?
Yes, up to some extent.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, I mean, I think I'm going to cover the same content that you already know, because this is the very first module. And I think I'm supposed to cover the basics in these initial, modules that, you are planning to use in other courses. 2132.
Hello, sir.
Vishal, right? Where are you working?
I'm working at Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, Open University of Sri Lanka, as a demonstrator. Yep.
Okay. Nice to hear that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, just to let you know, because this is like, normally if you are physically, we'll meet. Unfortunately, with this situation, we kind of miss that interaction. So that's why. Anyway, congratulations, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
I hope that you will continue the same spirit till the end of this module. Right. Having said that, let me move on to what I have covered last time. And if you see any doubts, any mistakes in the content that I cover, because I know some of you are already familiar with the most of the things that I actually cover in the module. So please do let me know, right? So that will actually helpful for the others as well. So let me share my slides. I will start with what we have finished last time. That means we have looked at the basic object orientation concepts in Python. And if you've already done some other programming language, you know the basics, and I want to, discuss how it actually different in Python. Now, for example, the very simple example that we have discussed last time, that is a student class with one variable and two other methods, and we start with defining the class student, and then we have an init method. Remember, although I sometimes mention this is a construct, this is not really the constructor in Python. If you read in depth how it's the new method, but this is where actually we have assigning the local, the variable. And then the next one is like when you look at the method that we have defined. Yes, we have two methods in this particular case. We have get name, where normally we will use getters and setters to access the local variables. The similar thing comes here as well. Basically, it will return the name, the variable, and then we have another method which we call study, right? Okay, so first thing that I would like to do for today's session, I want you to create the class on credit card and see whether you can actually create some of these methods, right? So in init method, I want you to assign some customer name, bank name, account, and also the credit limit. But balance, you can say 0, because already we know that when you are initializing a credit card, we can say the balance is 0 because it's not used. So shall we start with that small exercise with that? So I'm going to switch to Colab, and then the last time we discussed session 3. So I'm going to rename our session. Today is session number 4. All right. And then, okay, yeah, those who miss is perfectly all right. Right, now let me share the whole screen 2. So I hope now you can see. So what I've done last time, we actually look at, the modules. Yes. And then we discuss the data structure strings. Right, this is what we have done last time. Okay, let me start with the classes. Right. First of all, I will start with the toy problem, object-oriented programming. Right, those who have already familiar, you can try this credit card class. Right, if you remember the student class, we have a couple of things. First of all, we need to define the class, say in the class student. And then normally we call this as a doc string, right? Where we will say, okay, this is the student class. So we will say, okay, student class. And then you can say simply, you can say pass. The pass keyword actually we use sometimes, you are not finished, but just to say that, you are pass when you run it. Hopefully, yeah, it will create the student class. But we are not doing anything within a student class here, right? That pass method mainly we use in functions. When you define, before we define anything, we can use a pass keyword. I think you can see that there's no errors we have observed here, right? The next one is the first thing that I'm going to define is the init method def. It should be underscore init underscore, right? Okay. You have to always have the self keyword. The self keyword meaning you are referring to the same object when you're creating. So for the time being, if you're new to object-oriented programming, just forget about this. You see, you can put it as it is. The name self actually could be changed in Python, but yeah, for the time being, we'll put as self. And then let's assume that you are going to initialize the student name. That means you are going to give a student name when you're initializing. That means when you're creating an object. So what happens here, basically we will, assign the variable name. So that is the instance variable that we have designed earlier, that whatever the name we are getting from when you're initializing, we are assigning to the name in student class, right? So that's basically what happens here. Now, when you run it, now you can see, yes, there's no errors. Let me now, create some, students and see how this is working. Let's say my first student is S1 coming as a student class, and then let's say I'm going to say Amal, right? And just run it, and hopefully, yeah, there's no errors. Just to see that whether the assignment, we can just check the local variable. I can say S1 dot name, and we are getting name Amal, right? Okay. Similarly, you can see, just create another student, and you should be able to access the name of this. But normally, when you want to access local variable within the class, we will define separate methods. Otherwise, anybody can access this. So we can say, okay, def get name, and we are going to use self here as well, just to say that we are referring to the same object, and we can return self dot name, right? And instead of directly accessing, now from this point onwards, we can use get method to access. I can say, okay, S1 get name, and the output will be the same. So only change what I did is, instead of directly accessing, I use a method in the class to access the variables. And the third one that I'm going to do with this is, right, let me say def, I'm going to say study, and let me say self. And basically we can write anything here, but for the time being, just simply return a message saying, okay, study. And the access will be, right, we can say S1 dot study, and you should be getting what did I do? Okay, I didn't run this. Okay, I was wondering like what the mistake I have made. Yes. And you can see when you have like multiple values, you should use print. Otherwise, you know, whatever you have at the end will print, but the others will not print. So you will observe this time to time. I might use, when you have multiple values, I will use print. Otherwise, I will just say the object and method name. Right. Any questions on the very basic example that we have discussed last time? Now, the idea is I'm not going to give you a comprehensive, object-oriented analysis or programming in Python here. But what I want you to do is you should be able to comfortable with work with the existing classes in Python, because in Python everything is represented as classes. For example, the data types that we have discussed. Let's say int method, the list methods. They are represented as a built-in classes, and there you can see when you refer the documentation, you will see the self keyword and also structure. So I hope by doing the example like this, you will get an idea how exactly they have implemented inside, right? Okay. Right now, having said that, can you raise your hand if you are finished up to this point so that I can move to the credit card class discussing? And I'm still waiting for you to send me your answer, those who have already done. Right, please lower the hands. Thanks, everybody. Can you raise your hand, those who need more time? Still you are taking down this problem? Or some issues with your code? Those who need more time? Okay, Pereira, yes, you can take your time. Okay, Benura. Benura, are you finished or are you still working on the problem?
Just now finished, sir. Okay.
Okay, you are finished. Pereira? Yeah. Okay, right. Let's move to the credit card class. So in this one, what we are supposed to do is to implement the behavior of a credit class using object orientation in Python. Right now, first of all, you can start by creating the template for this credit card class by including everything that you want to have, right? So let me start. And if you have finished this, please share your code with me and with the other colleagues so that they can also learn from your code. You can make mistakes, so there's no one here to criticize your coding. And I know that some of you have already know the the basics in the Python and also the related technologies that we will discuss in this module. Right. Now, having said that, let's first of all start with the template. Just to know, if you use student, here is what we will get. Just to show you, like, this is the class that I have created earlier. When I say help student, you get a help because it will, in Python, we call docstring. So it's automatically generate the file and we can change it. I will have a small discussion maybe after finishing this one, where it'll give you the information, like, so student names, that is what we will give when you create the class, and this is the docstring that we have put. And then this is the initializing, right? And then these are the methods. We have not defined anything here, so that's why we are not getting any information, but we can put. And these are like other descriptors you have. Okay, right, that's what will happen if you use, help for this. Now, similarly, you can look at help, let's say list, because we look at list data structures, right? Now you can see so how built-in module and that we have class list. It's iterable, and then here are some the method defined under this. And remember, we discussed list append. In the information is given here, right? And then index, insert, we discussed reverse and sort. These are the things that we have discussed under list. So I hope now you have some idea about like how exactly these classes are built inside Python. Now let's start credit card example. So we need to create a class credit card, right? And then now you see the doc strings are helpful, so that you will give information like, for example, this is a credit card class. So this is after immediate first line, you have to have this, right? And then we can define what methods. So we first of all have init method, right? For the time being, I will not put anything. So this is to see the structure. And then we have a couple of methods, get customer. Yes, I will just say pass about both these values. And then we have get balance. We have pass, right? And then def purchase, right? Okay, by the way, you have to have self in all these. So maybe I will include those. Yes, self. Yes, self. Because self. Sometimes you might think that this is not compulsory. Yes, we'll say pass and then purchase and then def, make payment. Right. So these are the methods that we need to have. Okay, so the attributes, and if you run it, then hopefully, yeah. So no errors, the structure that we have put. Now that I have to create the initialization, when you create an object of credit card, I want to have a customer name, a bank name, account number, and a credit limit. The balance, I can directly say it's 0, right? So because of that, I'm going to upgrade the init method. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to provide customer name. I will use different names, but you will see in examples or the code that you will see in other places that the same name could be used, but to distinguish these values coming from when you're initializing, I'm using different names. So I will say customer name and then bank name. And then account number and credit limit. Right, that's enough, right? And you know what we will do here, right? So for example, I can say, okay, self.cname. This is the name we have given. Remember, I said C name, B name, account, limit, and balance. So basically the values I'm getting, I'm going to initialize here. So we have, okay, CNAME. We have CNAME, we have to assign the value. We will say, okay, it's customer name. And rename, we can say bank name, and account number, we will say account number, and then we have limit, it's the credit limit. And we have one more, that is balance. Credit card balance, we will initialize 0 because we already know the balance would be 0. Right, let me run. No errors, yes. And you can just simply now check help credit card. And you can see help on class credit card in module main. And here are the initialized value, and these are the methods. That some automatically generate values are here, and we can change this by giving what we call doc strings. So any method that you defined, right? So we can have this to improve the coding. So I will put some information here, right, under doc string. So that means as multi-line strings. So in here, I will put, okay, CNAME means we know it's the name of the customer, right? And bank is the name of the bank. And account is account number. And the limit is, we know it's credit limit, and we know that balance, that means credit card balance. When you put it like this, and if you again run help, now this time you will see much more improved documentation, because now you can see what these values means. Actually, you don't have to talk about balance here, since that balance is not here, right? That you can actually remove, right? But anyway, I mean, like here I will put. Okay, if you finish up to this point, can you please raise your hand so that I can move to the next one once you finished? So simply what should happen is the balance. We want to update the balance, that is balance with the purchase, right? So we can say plus whatever the price. So this should be enough, but only issue is, yeah, this is fine. I mean, you can make a purchase, right? Let me run this. Okay. I'm going to make a purchase here, right? Like print CC I'm going to say purchase, but I'm going to purchase something, let's say, which will worth 25,000, right? I'll put 25,000. Let me check the balance. I will copy paste the balance. So now you can see, first one, we are getting the name of the customer. This is the balance, initial balance. Sorry. What? Okay, we have to, sorry, we have to get the bag. I think I made bank name. Yes, bank name. Account number. So I have not put account number. It's okay. Yeah. That's BOC. And then balance is 0. You make a purchase, but nothing returned. So that's why you have none. Actually, we should have removed this, print statement here. You don't have to print, right? And then basically we are getting the balance. It's 25,000. Now let's try to make another purchase, right? Let's make another purchase. This time I'm trying to make, 30,000. With the current implementation, I mean, it's allowed anyway. But we know that our credit limit is 50,000. We want to limit it to 50,000, isn't it? So that means this is not enough, right? We should make sure that it will not exceed the limit. So you have existing, balance and the price. It should not exceed the limit that we have imposed here, isn't it? So we have to have a selection. So let me put that selection here. So I'm going to say, okay, if the limit, right, it should be, greater than or equal to the balance and existing balance, and then the price of the item that you are going to purchase it. Yeah, should be like this. If that is the case, you can, make this, right? For the completeness, let me say return true. Else, maybe I can say, okay, return false. Right, now that I did, let me run. And then when I run this time, see what will happen. This is the previous time. So it allowed this purchase, but if you run it this time, you see there's no change of the balance, because this is decline, that you have declined the purchase. Right? You have declined the purchase. Now let's try to update the make payment. Like, can you share me the code for the make payment? That is easy one. Okay, I got answers from Hassan. Yes, Shanta, good. Yes, this is exactly what I want to do. Okay, right. So let's finish our discussion by making the payment. Yeah, can you share me the code for the payment? It's simply, you will deduct a particular amount. So let's say the payment with the amount, let me say amount, right? And then I can say, okay, payment to the credit card, right? So in this one, payment to the credit card, what I'm going to do is I will set the balance because we have already have balance added and we need to subtract whatever the amount, right? When you make the payment. So I'm going to run this. Now let's make a payment. Let's make a payment. I will say, okay, cc dot make payment. So I'm going to put 15,000 as the payment. And let's look at the balance again. So 25,000 is the balance, but after making a 15,000 payment, the credit card balance is 10,000. Right. Okay. So if you have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hands so that we are going to move on our next topic.
Just a quick question, Doctor. So when you do a purchase, don't we need to reduce the limit as well?
No, you don't. Limit is the impose in the beginning, like the maximum limit that you can go for. So
Okay.
what I'm trying to check here, according to what I have written, is when you make a purchase, you check with the existing balance. Once you know, existing balance plus whatever that you want to make should not exceed the limit. So the limit is always fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, in my case, for example, here I set it is 50,000. It will always be 50,000.
Yeah. So normally credit cards me too. That's why I said limit reduces when we purchase. So, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
It's not the limit actually. Okay, I don't know. I mean, like, okay. So
Credit card
what,
limit.
okay, let me explain my thinking. My thinking was I have some hard limit. Okay, we have a credit limit of 50,000. And all my purchases and everything should be within the 50,000. So that's what I checked, right?
Yeah. So it's a single purchase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I mean, you can have multiple. Yeah, let me show you, right? Now it's still,
I
yeah,
mean, single purchase limit.
no, total. Now, for example, here I'm making 50,000, right? 25,000. And what is left is 25,000 balance. Now then I'm trying to purchase 30,000 and it is declined. So let me take another purchase. Let me have another purchase of 5,000. Now my balance is 30,000 and every time my credit limit is 50,000. Whenever my purchase is total purchase going to exceed 50,000, it is going to decline. That's how I have written here.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But I understand your point that you have raised. Okay.
Here, after payment, it need to be plus, no?
After payment,
The amount plus, no? Balance plus amount.
no. I mean, like, again, here, my thinking is here, when you make a purchase, it added to the balance, right? It's a positive value. Like, for example, when I make a 25,000 purchase, right? My balance is, in this particular case, the credit card balance. There are two things now. Now, when you say purchase, my maximum purchase is 50,000. Initially, balance is zero. Balance is zero means I have nothing to pay for the credit card. So that's what I have put it like that. So that's why I said it's a different thinking. So I said in the beginning, the balance is zero, credit limit is 50,000. When I purchase 25,000, right? What happens? What I thought is, okay, so when I say it's a limit is 50,000, right? And the balance would be, right, 25,000 after the purchase. Initially it's zero.
But it's
Not the remaining balance. That I understand your point. Now, when you get a credit card statement, how do you normally get it? I don't know whether I have mistaken that one. Should it be the other way around?
no, it's correct. Like payment balance is 25,000. So once you pay 10,000, so then the pay balance will be 15,000. So in that way, it's logic correct.
Yeah, now for example, here what I'm trying to do is the limit is 50,000. I'm trying to make a purchase of 30,000. The balance is 25,000 plus 30,000. It exceeds 50,000, which it declines. So balance would be the same, no change. And then when I purchase 5,000, limit is still 50,000. And my balance is increased to 30,000. That means I am actually, need to pay 30,000 to settle my credit card. So this is where I make the balance. I think my thinking is slightly different. Maybe what you thought, like when you're defining, I think that's acceptable, right? Same thing, we can, see it in a different view. So to settle the card, now I'm making a payment of 15,000. I will reduce. That is the other question now. The balance is 30,000 and I'm paying 15,000. It will reduce, so that what will happen? Limit is still, my limit is 50,000. Now balance is reduced after this. Yes, 15,000. So that's what we have seen here. Okay, anyways, I think I should not confuse too much on this one. I mean, think about it. It might be slightly different what you're thinking and how I thought in here in the implementation of the credit card. Okay, if you all are ready, we can move to the next topic then. Shall we move to the next topic? Yes, you can lower the hands. Okay, so from this point onwards, our focus is going for the modules available in Python for data analysis and artificial intelligence. And I told you, like, I'm going to focus on several packages, the modules available for you to start work with in data analytics. The first one, I'm going to start with numerical Python. Can you please raise your hand, or those who are already familiar with NumPy? At least you try a few examples, that's okay. Just to see like how many of you are already familiar with numerical Python. Okay, we have a couple of, yes. Okay, so when I'm explaining like some of the functions in numerical Python, there could be multiple ways to do this. And if you're familiar with any of these different way, please do share your, your experience with me. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Shanta. Thanks, Sumesh. Right. Okay, you can lower the hands. Okay, now remember we discussed lists earlier, that is built-in data structure that actually we can use to represent simple data. But then again, when you want to like have a bigger list, large numbers, then implementations are not that efficient. I mean, people argue. I can share like couple of articles. People say that when to use list and when to use NumPy arrays. But then again, most of the time, efficiency is what we look here, right? And if you're already familiar with the MATLAB and all the MATLAB functionalities, like now we can use with numerical Python library. It's a very powerful, we can say, n-dimensional library available in Python. And it's mainly used for numerical computations. That means defining vectors, matrices, especially vector calculus, meaning now when you want to perform some mathematical operations using loops are very inefficient. So we can convert them into vector operations, which is very efficient, right? And the performance is number one, and easy to use. Also, it's open source. So these are like some of the features of this numerical Python library. Now, not only that, by learning numerical Python, you have basics for the other modules as well. Now, you can install Python. I will explain how you are going to do this in a local machine. In Colab, you don't have to do this because it's already available. Or else you can even use what is already available in NumPy org as well, because you have a virtual environment here you to work with. The next thing that I want to highlight is the ecosystem, which means there are a number of things that you can do with related packages, and we'll top off numerical Python. Now, for example, there are various scientific domains you can cover with this, like quantum computing, statistical computing, signal processing, image processing, and so on. So you can go through the list. I'm not going to spend time. But since we are more on data science aspect of this, we will focus on pandas, for example. Jupyter notebooks we have already discussed. Matplotlib we are going to discuss next. Then machine learning, scikit-learn, right? And all these actually, sometimes, for example, pandas on top of numerical Python. So you can see by learning this, and it's easier for you to, familiar with other, modules available. And similar goes with the, machine learning as well, especially deep neural networks. So the basis that you have learned and some of the methods that we have discussed under numerical Python is also available in other packages like, pandas, for example, right? So you can, look at the details. So let's see how we can work on numerical Python, right? So to start with, let's look at how a list and a numerical Python array will look like first. So efficiency matters that I will discuss later on, but for the time being, let me discuss, since we have already learned. We have already learned this. Let's look at how it different in numerical Python. Right now, let's start a new topic. I'm going to use numerical Python, or numerical computation in Python, or simply we call NumPy. Right. So the first thing that I'm going to discuss is we'll look at the list first, and the same list as a NumPy array. Right. So first thing is you need to define. For example, what I'm going to look at is Python list versus NumPy arrays. Now, remember one more thing about the list in Python. We know that you can mix items in the list. That means you have mixed data types. But the numerical Python, it supports one particular data type. So that is one of the things that you have to note here in the beginning. So let's discuss the first one. I'm going to say, okay, test one. And I will create a list with 1, 2, 3. And if you look at the type of this, type test one, and if you run it, now you can observe that, okay, this is a class list, right? This is a class list, which means it's a list. So this is how we have defined. Now the same thing that if you want to use as a numerical Python array, you have to slightly change the way you use. So we can say, okay, import numpy, and then let me create test2 as a numpy array. Remember that then you put it as a list. So 1, 2, 3, same thing, but sorry, this should be numpy. I will explain why I actually shortened there. For the time being, we will type it like this. And then let's print type test2. So you can see the difference, the appearance. So the first one we have defined as a list, and the second one as a numpy n-dimensional array. We call ND array. Okay, right. Now, every time when you use methods available inside the NumPy, you have to say NumPy, which is a little bit longer. So usually we rename as NP. That means we prefer shorter names. And most of the time you will see this in next sessions as well. So I'm going to shorten this as NP array. Nothing changed, but I have shortened the name of the library NumPy as NP. Okay. Yes. Finished? Any questions? Are you comfortable up to this point? Right. So let's start with the first of all the one-dimensional arrays, or we can say vectors in mathematics if you have already learned. So how you can define something. So let's start with that one. Right. Now the first thing that I'm going to see is let me take a code window, right? I'm going to define one-day arrays, one-dimensional arrays or in other words, we normally call vectors. We can define vectors in two ways, as row vector or column vector. Let me start with first one. So I will import numpy here as well as np. That should be the first one. And let me define a row vector. Right. And let me say that row vector is A, and then I'm going to use np array method. And within that, I will have a list of numbers, right? Like this. And usually if you type print A, it should print your, one day array content. You looks like a list, but you know that internally it's efficient implementation. So that part we have already discussed. Right. Then you can have other, since we have defined as an end-day array, we have other things as well, right? You can use type A also I will put, but this is already we have done. But there are other methods, like for example, first thing that we are going to do is you can get the shape of this array. Shape means a number of dimensions. We call shape. Basically, shape means number of dimensions. You can see now here, since it's only a row vector, one dimension, you don't see it's useful as much here. But when you have 2D arrays, it will list the number of rows and columns, which is helpful. Now, for example, in a data set, we can use a data set shape will give you number of rows and number of columns you have. So shape is important. Similarly, there's a size. The size will give you the number of elements, right? Number of elements, right? The second one you see here, we have 4 elements. So it says the size is 4. Right. Last one, if you want to access element, it will be the same as previous. For example, if you want to access the first element, you can use the same method. For example, first element, we can say a node, the first element. Right. You get 1. So there's a good question from in the chat. So what is the Venura asked, like, what is the difference between a list and an ND array? So I will share you a couple of links where you can talk about numerical Python arrays and what is the difference. And as I told you earlier, the NumPy is used for scientific computing. And one difference I told you, remember, in list you can have mixed types. So how Python allow mixed types is actually it will actually define it as object within this implementation. Now, for example, in a list you can have a integer, you can have a float, you can have a string, and so on. Right now there'll be overhead, right? Definitely. But in NumPy, for example, NumPy arrays, you can have only a single data type, which actually reduce that overhead. So in a way that NumPy structures take less space compared to lists. right? And usually they are faster than list, right? For example, in linear algebra operations we are going to discuss, like metric manipulations, for example, are more efficient in NumPy arrays than lists. But there are other, people arguing the other way around as well. For example, the list we will discuss later on, that it will, for example, if you take a method like append methods works on copies, not with the original, end array, which is overhead. So sometimes lists are better than numerical. So it depends, right? But majority of the case, for especially in numerical computation, this is optimized, and you have it allows only a single data type, which is more efficient than lists. So I will put up some links where you can read in the chat, and I will put this in the note as well, so you can read on the difference with some examples, and also with the time it function, where you can see the timing of these to see more insight of this one, right? So yeah, these are just two links where you can read more on, when to use, for example, list, and when to use, NumPy.
Sir?
Yes.
Like in NumPy, we can have only one type.
Yes.
For
NumPy.
example,
Yeah.
For example, like if we have kind of string and numeric, it is not possible.
Yeah, not possible, and then it will upcast. Now, for example, if you have mixed values, like for example, int and float, string will not go together. Now, let's say for some reason we have integer and floating point values, it will upcast it to float values, for example. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
I tried using a string, but still it worked for me. So, for example,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, exactly. The point is it will upcasting.
okay.
Yeah, it will upcast. Then you can look for the data type. If you can share your code with me, maybe I can, explain that. What exactly you have tried. Okay. But you can read more on, because like to understand this one, you should, read. I think the book that I have referred in the very beginning will discuss how exactly Python store these objects, because that is one thing we need to understand, right? So to one, it's not direct. Okay, right. Let me let's first of all discuss, then we can have like spend some time on understanding why this is working and why this is not working. As I told you earlier, like when we say import NumPy as NP, and if you say, let's say some C equals np.array, and within the method, if you have 1, 2.0, 3, and so on, and if you say, okay, print C, right, you can see that this has changed. All the values actually change for floating point numbers, because as I told you earlier, array will support only one data type. It will try to convert, in this case we usually use the term upcast, into floating point values. Similarly, let's take your example. I think you have, see what happens there. So it says B. Okay, so this is additional, like those who are beginners, you can just forget about this. We have B array, and then let's say, okay, print B. And then this is what you are getting. So what you are getting here? So the numbers has changed to string values, isn't it? Hassan, you got my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you have to be very careful. You should understand how it works. I mean, I think generally you don't have really worry about when you work with the data, but understanding this is very important. What happened inside, because otherwise you might mislead, right? So let me anyway. Good question. I think both the question I think supports the understanding of NumPy arrays. Okay, so I have shared some, and in the textbook also we have some, and particularly there's another book that used to refer in pandas. I will share that one as well, where the creator of pandas talks about these things, and very important to know what is inside, right? Having said that, yeah, let's move to the next one, right? So next, I would like to discuss a column vector where we have, let's say B, but as a column, right? Let's say a single column of data. This is like a row of data. Now in column vectors, as we can represent them as a list of lists. So that means we have only one item in each row. This is how we are going to define it. If you remember this representation, when you discuss list of list, I told you each row we are going to put in a list, right? So this is like individually in a list. So that means every row you have one element. And if you say, okay, print B, right? Interestingly, you can see it as a column, right? In numerical Python, it's not like in lists. If you do this in list, you don't see it like this. But here it, representation looks like a column. And just try shape and size. Remember we discussed b dot shape will give you the dimensions. And now it says 4 rows and 1 column. Now it's actually more meaningful than in the previous one. And then we have b dot size will give you right, the total number of elements, that is 4. Right. If you finish up to this point, can you please raise your hands so that we can move to the next one, where we will discuss how we can generate vectors. Because sometimes the artificially generated data or artificially generated information is very important. Let's say you are doing data analysis and you don't have really data with you, and we should be able to artificially create data, right? So the vector generation or 1D array generation is very important. So let's see some of the methods available for the generation. Okay, right, you can lower the hands. Thanks everyone. So let first of all discuss some functions that we can use to generate vectors. Here, for example, we use a range. It's like we can say array range. Remember the range function, the similar. So we have again the similar way. We can have a range. We have 3 values like in earlier start. It's similar to previous one. Stop and step, right? Now, for example, if I want to print numbers from 1 to 10, I will say 1 to 10 vector just to for the name. You can use simply C, D or whatever. I can say np.array a range. I can say 1, 11. I hope you remember this now. And if you say print 1 to 10 vector, and if you run it, you have 10 elements, right? You can use size and shape command to see, how many elements you are getting. Okay, small exercises. Give me a code for a vector, odd vector with numbers from 1 to 10 even vector with numbers from 1 to 100. Can you quickly give me the code based on a range function? This is very important. You see, for example, next week, we will discuss visualization once we are after finishing the numerical Python one. And in visualization, we have to define X and Y vector. You know the X values, we have to say like, well, let's say the first 100 points. So we want to go from minus 100 to plus 100. Or we have to say, okay, minus pi to plus pi. So a range is very useful. Okay, right. Let me see. Okay, Danushka, given me an answer for the first one. Good. How about the others? How about the others? Umesh? Okay, I got the answer from Siraj. Hassan, good. Sachit? So a array range is similar to range function where it will generate vectors. So we can say np.arange, and when you specify 1, 11, it means the step is 1 when you have only 2 values, similar to the previous discussion. So you start with the 1, then 2, then 3, goes up to 10, isn't it? So it should print numbers from 1 to 10. How about Ishani? Finished? I would like to see your answer, Ishani. Okay, Telina, we got it. Okay, we have Gimhani. Imran, yes. Okay, Ishani, thanks for sharing your answer with me. Right, so odd vector, right? How should we define odd vector? So maybe we will say odd vector. I can say np.arange. You can say 1. You start with the 1. We know that it's 9, so you can have 10 or 11. Doesn't matter what you put it here. Right? I can put 11, but even 10 would be fine. The step should be 2, right? The step should be 2. So we will put it like this, and we can say print, okay, odd vector. So when we say odd vector, yeah, we are getting a number like this, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Right, next one. Even vector, let me say even vector. And then np.arange, we can say 2, comma. Okay, I need to have 100 as well. It says 100, so I have to put 101. And then I will put 2. And then let me say print even vector. So yeah, you should be getting answer like this. Yep. Are you comfortable with this? Or shall we move to the next one then? Right. Okay. The second one that I'm going to discuss, vector generation, is called linspace. Right? We'll say linspace. Linspace means generate. This will generate linearly spaced vector. Right now, if you want to know, like you can say np.linspace should give you. I hope that we should be getting the help. Yes. Okay, so let me go back. Okay, linspace, start, stop, number is 50, endpoint true, and so on. And return evenly spaced numbers over a specified interval. Right? So simply we can say start and stop. But remember, this is slightly different previous one. Stop is also included. When you say 1, 100 here, 1 and 100 also included, not like in previous, not like a range function. So make a note of this one. Now, for example, I will say y equals np dot linspace. Okay, first starting value is 1. Then if you put 100, see what will happen. Right? If you say print y, this is what you are getting. You get values like this, 1 to 100. And there are some values. This is evenly spaced. Right? Within 1 and 100, evenly spaced. So look at the shape of this. Okay, how many points? Y dot shape. And you should see that there are 50 elements, because if you look at, if you remember the help function, it says the size is 50 or number is 50. Okay, so a small question. I want you to, right? Yes, get 100 elements between 1 to 100. How should you do that? Getting 100 elements between 1 and 100. Yes, look at help first. nb dot linspace. Yes, how should I type? The third argument you can change. Number is 50. You can simply say it's 100. So simply we can say, okay, we can say something like this. Let me see. Again, y np dot linspace 1, 100, 100. Right? So when you say print y and print y dot shape, you should be getting like this. Right? So there will be 100 elements between 1 and 100. And note that this is altogether what you're getting is floating point numbers. So you see the decimal point there. Remember, I told you in the very beginning, decimal point means it's a floating point value. So it goes from 1 to 100. Right. Any questions? No questions? You are comfortable? Right? Make sure that you do a couple of exercises and come, because in next quiz, you will be getting like, outcomes. We are going to, assess whether you have understood well in these, functions. Right. No questions means we'll move to the next one. So now let's look at matrices or 2D arrays. We can say matrices using numerical Python. So let's say I'm going to define matrix A with numpy array method. And remember, this should be list of list. I think we have discussed earlier as well. So that this is the first row, and here is, I have a second row, right? And then let's see, we have third row. So it's like this. And when you say print A, and you will see nicely printed a 3x3 matrix. So if you print, type A, you can see you get numpy array, and then we can get their shape. You should get it's a 3x3, right? So let me run. You should be getting like this. Right, now let's say I want to access, right? Give me a code for this, right? To get the element in the second row and second column. Can you give me the code for this? I want you to give me the element or the value in the second row and second column of the matrix A. So let me check your answers. Yes. There are multiple ways that you can do. First of all, now if you say print A1, what will happen? Right? So we can say, okay, that is, first row, right? And then within that, you can access the first element. Sorry, it's not the first row, it's the second row, because first row is 0. It's the second row. And then let's say second element, you can say, okay, print A1. And within that, you are going to get 1. It's like you have a row vector, and then you are going to get the next one. So this is one way to do this. Or simply you can say this notation I will discuss later on, right? Yes, in both these are, these two are, both correct. The first one I'm accessing First the row and then the element. Second one, we specify row and column, right? So both ways, both ways are acceptable. Right, that's the matrices. Now that we have learned matrices, the next one that we are going to discuss is matrix generation. So once you finish, please raise your hand so that I can talk about what are the methods that we have for generating matrices. Right, okay, you can lower the hands. Thanks everyone. Let's look at vector generation, sorry, matrix generation. Yeah, couple of things we are going to discuss. We are going to talk about generating matrices. And under that, I'm going to talk about the np.1s, right? Basically, you will have values of 1, then np dot zeros, values with zeros, np dot I, we call identity matrix. That means the value 1 along the diagonal, and then random matrices, which is again very important, where we will talk about np.random.rand method and np dot. So we have np dot random dot rand int method. Right, okay. So let's look at, first of all, we can use, although we talk about matrices, you can have vectors also from this just by using the same. So yeah, so if same functions can be used to generate vectors as well. So let me give some examples. Now, for example, here, when we say np.15, see what will happen. So this will create a row vector which contains 1, right? A row vector of size 5, which fill with 1s here. So that is obvious, right? The next one, let's say column vector. So we can slightly change this one. We can say np.1s. Okay, remember, make a note of this. We can say within this as a tuple. We have a tuple. Remember, we have to put a tuple. Tuple means rounded brackets. And we see specify rows and columns. Right? Let's say 3 by 1. 3 means number of rows is 3, 1 column. So if you do this, you see second line here, right? This is a column vector. A column vector of size 3. Okay. Then if you need a matrix, let's say 3 by 3, I can say, okay, print np.1s. I can say 3 by 3 matrix. So you can see here, it's a 3 by 3 matrix. 3 by 3 matrix, which fill 1s. Any questions? But remember, the numbers inside this, they are all defined as floating point numbers. Okay, are you comfortable up to this point? Any questions? You're good? Okay. Yeah, just look at the help function. Again, remember, always use help np dot once. Hopefully, yeah, we are getting this. Yes, we'll get once shape, D type order. Okay, data type. Now remember the data type initially it's float, right? Default is floating point number. You can change it to integer if you want, like this. Now, for example, here, let me have slightly change this one. Once we have 3 by 3, and after that we will say D type. Now here D type, we can define what kind of a data type you want. Let me say int, and if I run this, right, let me take this from here, right? This is what I have. Let me take new code. Okay, you can see here now the values has changed to int value. So remember, D type could be used for this. Any questions up to this point? Are we clear up to this point? Yes. Shall we move to the next one then? Yeah, similarly, you can have zeros as well. So when we say print np dot zeros, right, I can have 5. Yes, we are getting like this. That is zeros. Print, we say 3,1. np dot zeros should give us a column. Sorry, I did a mistake here. Yeah, so np0, so it should be another bracket here. So we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, here also we have 1. See, yeah. 3 by 1. And similarly, we can say, okay, print np dot zeros 3 by 3. So that is using zeros. Right, next. Those who needs more time, can you raise your hands? More time. Nobody? Okay. So next, identity matrix. So identity matrix means we are going to talk about np.I, which will, generate identity. right? Identity matrix, again, very important. We will see when we equation solve and so on, how this is used. But for the time being, in identity matrix is a square matrix. That means the size will be the same as number of rows and columns. And the values in diagonal is 1 always, and off diagonal, it will be 0. So when you are defining something, right, using identity matrix, we can use, let me say, print np.I. You can simply put 3, because one dimension, giving one dimension is enough. So it will create 3 by 3 matrix. In diagonal, you have 1, and off diagonal, we have 0. Right. Okay. Now let's look at some random numbers, random matrices. Generation random matrices, again, very important, especially in machine learning. There are some methods actually based on the randomness, like random projection, random subspaces, random indexing, random forest, random rotational forest. Randomness are used extensively. And sometimes, especially in ensemble modeling, that means when you want to consult many experts, right, you can have a random set of experts, and when you fuse your decision, you will get improved accuracy. So the randomness is again very important. So let's look at how we can generate some random numbers. So we can look at how we can generate random numbers from uniform distribution. That means the values will be, yes, between 0 and 1, right? So let me give you an example. Now here, for example, I can have a simple method. Let me say print. I can say np.random.rand. And if you specify only the number, it will create a vector, random number vector between 0 and 1, right? And similarly, if you want to have print np.random.rand, I can say, okay, 3 by 2, we are getting 3 by 2 matrix, right? We will get 3 by 2 matrix. So that's how we will use random numbers. If you finish up to this point, can you please raise your hands? Thanks.
I think, Doctor, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes. Sorry about that. How many minutes? Okay, maybe one just minute. Random numbers from yeah, uniform distribution. I said you use RAN function or RAN method, and here RAN n method for the normal distribution. Right. To finish our discussion, let's have one more method and we'll finish for today. That means, okay, generation of random integer values. For example, I can say something like this: np.random.randint. I can say 1,100. Right. So simply what this means, okay, I need a random number between 1 to 100, including 1 and 100. So it says 41. So every time I will get different set of numbers. Yes, can one of you tell me why we are getting a different number?
The seed is not mentioned.
Okay, what is seed?
A base that we used to generate numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the real random numbers, you cannot reproduce, isn't it? Now, especially when you're working with data analytics, we do experiments, but if you want to reproduce, we want to have, although it's a random, we need a random number, right? So, yeah, so then you have to find out exactly how you are going to have this, right? So otherwise, so usually, although we say random, most of the random methods that we discuss, we will have some seed value where we talk about how we are going to have the same value, right? Otherwise, you will get really random, and that is not what we want to do, right? So that is one thing that you need to remember. Right. The second one, similarly, let's say you need like several other numbers, right? And for that, okay, for that, you can say ran int. For example, we can say, okay, print np.random.rand int 1,100,10. I'm getting like 10 random numbers. So you can see this is changing. Every time when you run it, you get different values. So now if you have this particular case, right, we can fix this and we can, specify, state where the values are needed, right? So that means, when you're generating random numbers, the randomness actually use what we call the system time. And, if you avoid the seed, right? So we can say, okay, np random seed. So hopefully fix this one. So we can say, okay, np dot random dot seed. Yeah, let's say seed is 1. Yes. Every time when you run it, you are getting 38 here because seed is fixed. So if you put like, let's say 41, this is fixed now. But if you comment this out, and if you run it, you can, random set of values. So basically we specify a point in operation, right? We will have, fix, or we will get what we call pseudo random, pseudo random here. So you will get different set of values. Okay, I think that's all I have for today's session. Any questions before we move to next one? Okay.
I think we are okay.
Yeah.
Doctor.
Sorry, Shanta.
I think we are okay, Doctor.
Okay, thanks everyone. Then we'll make next week. Please go through this if you're not familiar and if you're first time starter. So I think you spend some time on this. I will send you whole my note on NumPy for you to try and come, so that you don't have to wait until I will describe everything. So then I will share you the note and then you can try and come for the next week. So the next week session, my plan is, I will finish this and then move on to, visualization, the basic one using Matplotlib, and then we'll back to Panda. So that's the plan for the time being. Right, then thanks everyone and hope to meet you guys on next week.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.